Okay, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Sorry about that. And we will get going. I'm really excited about tonight's topics. This is some of my favorite stuff to talk about. And Big Sugar is getting really close. So really excited about this. Just like last time, feel free to use the chat. I will be monitoring that. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in there. If you want to comment on anything or just introduce yourself, feel free to do so. So this is our second Wheels of Welcome call. A lot of the imagery is going to look very familiar to you because it's a lot of the same slides as last time, or at least the background images, because I'm lazy, and that is okay. So tonight we're gonna go through an intro again in case anybody missed the last call. Just talk a little bit about the Wheels of Welcome program. We're going to talk a little bit about Bentonville logistics for the weekend of. I'm not sure exactly where folks are traveling in from that are on this call, but we'll go over some basics. We'll talk a little bit about race day essentials, how I prepare, my recommendations for you to prepare, that sort of thing. And then we'll talk a little bit about what to do when things go wrong. And then we'll have a lot of time at the end for question and answer. I anticipate we'll wrap up a little bit early. But let's dive into things. So again, my name is Marley Blonsky. I am a professional cyclist. I get paid by a number of companies, including Shimano, Cannondale, Ride with GPS, but I'm not a coach. So I'm not training you guys. I'm really just here to help share what has helped me be successful at many, far too many gravel races and events. I've done Unbound 4 times, I've done Mid-South 3 times, I've done Big Sugar, I've done a whole lot of dumb races. And I'm here to share with you the lessons that I have learned over this time. I was hoping Sean was going to join us again. He wasn't able to again. So if you see him on race weekend, make sure to give him a nudge or a holler and just say hi to him. He's a really nice guy, but I was hoping he was join us. So again, the goals for the program, I'll reiterate these one more time. Hoping to cultivate an inclusive community. Hoping that, you guys will see some familiar faces out there when Big Sugar Weekend comes. Hoping to also lower the barrier to entry for gravel events. They always say they're beginner friendly, but there's just a lot of tips and tricks where if you don't know them, it's not as comfortable. And my hope is that you will have a successful finish. And then the third goal is to educate and help prepare you for success, whatever success means to you, whether you're trying to podium or just make it through the day. My hope is to get you across that finish line so that way you do want to sign up for more events. So again, with the community expectations, no issues with this last time at all, but respecting each other, we all have different goals. We're all coming from different starting points. All of our rides are going to look different. Just ask that you respect each other. There are no dumb questions. Respect the lands that we ride on. Don't litter intentionally. Sometimes things happen, but ask that you pick your stuff up. And just ask that you respect everybody you meet at the event. Bentonville is a fairly diverse place. You're going to meet people with different political backgrounds and different opinions, and just ask that we all respect each other. I already said this, but there are no dumb questions. Feel free to ask away anything tonight, and then on the Facebook group as well. And then finally, just a reminder that all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides are celebrated. Even if you don't make it across that finish line in a couple weeks from now, you should still celebrate your success. So the program components, so we have this training calls. This is our second of 2 training calls. We have the online group, and then I got confirmation that we will definitely have a shakeout ride, and I have some more information about that. I've made the route for it. So I think that is the next slide, or it's in a couple slides. So a couple of Bentonville logistics. So the expo is going to be Thursday and Friday, and it's actually at the Momentary. They moved the expo from downtown this year. Well, I guess the Momentary is still technically downtown, but they moved it to the other side of downtown at the Momentary. So that should work out pretty well for folks and be less of an impact on traffic. Shakeout rides will also take off from the Momentary. So once they release the schedule, they haven't released the schedule yet, which I'm a little bit frustrated with because I wish I knew and I wish I could plan out my weekend a little more in depth. But once we find that out, all the shakeout rides will be leaving from the momentary. The race start and finish is actually downtown. So if you look over here, if you see where Onyx Coffee Lab is at, that is where really close to where the start and finish is going to be at. And then where this blue dot is at in the lower right corner, that is where the momentary is at. It's about a 5-minute bike ride, about a 10-minute walk. So if you haven't been to downtown Bentonville, it's all very compact. It's very easy. There is tons of bike parking available, and I'd really recommend that if it's possible for you to ride your bike from wherever you're staying, you do that. There's also lots of car parking, but it's going to be a pretty crazy weekend here in Bentonville because Outer Bike is also happening. So my recommendation is the less you can drive your car, the better off you're going to be. I would recommend bringing like a small cable lock. We don't have a lot of bike theft in Bentonville, but God forbid, when there's so many people in town, you leave your bike unlocked and it gets snapped. So I would bring a lightweight cable lock if I were you, so that way when you are not with your bike, it is safe and secure. Start times. So they have released the start times, which is exciting. So the 100 mile goes off first. At 7:25 a.m. will be the pro men, followed 10 minutes later by the pro women, and then about, what is that, 15 minutes? I can do math. 15 minutes later, maybe that's 25 minutes. I don't know. It's been a long day. At 7:50, the 100 mile the general folks start. I can do math. That is 15 minutes later. I like to personally go down and watch the pros take off. I think it's a lot of fun. I might not this year since we don't start, since the 25 mile, which is what I'm doing, doesn't start until 9 o'clock. But we'll see. The 50 starts at 8:30 in the morning, and then the 25, like I said, starts at 9 a.m. This will all be in the rider guide as well, but I like to show up usually about 15 minutes before the start of my race, so that way I can find my start in the chute line. And as we talked about last time with the mullet analogy, the serious folks are in the front, and the less serious folks, business in the front, party in the back. You'll want to line up in that starting chute, kind of around other folks that you think will be going right about the same pace as you. It'll always work itself out. It does no matter what. But if the less stress you could give yourself if you're trying to keep up with folks that are too fast for you, or if you're trying to get around people that are going a lot slower than you want to go, that'll make things a whole lot easier as you get into the day. Okay, so to go over this one more time, on the 50-mile course, it's actually 52 miles, and you've got about 3,500 feet of elevation gain. It loops up into southern Missouri, which is kind of fun, and you've got one aid station. Last year, it was really well stocked with lots of nutrition, lots of food. There was a giant pot-bellied pig. They weren't cooking it. It wasn't to eat, but it was just out there. And it's actually at a brewery. So if you're into beer, you could always stop and have a beer at the brewery as well. And then you've got one water oasis as well, a water oasis. And they'll have just water there to fill your bottles up if you need to. One really important note is if you're coming to town and you want to pre-ride the 50-mile, it does go through private property at mile 23, and they've asked us to not pre-ride that section. There is a way around it, but just be aware that if you're following the exact course that they have on the website, it's going to take you through private property, which they've asked us not to ride until race day. For the 25-mile course, it's actually 28 miles, but it's easier to say 25 miles, with about 1,300 feet of elevation gain. There is one aid station. Hopefully it is just as well stocked as the 50 and the 100-mile. And my big recommendation for the 25-mile is there's some really cute donkeys at mile 11. It's at the top of kind of a gnarly climb that sometimes I walk it, sometimes I ride it. But the donkeys will be on the right side at the top of the climb at mile 11. And I recommend snapping a picture. It's a great place to take a break, grab a snack, and then keep going. So that is my recommendation for the 25-mile. And again, feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. I will be monitoring that. Okay, so here is the info on the shakeout ride. Like I said, the day and the time, the schedule is still to be determined, but basically it's going to be about 9.5 miles. And we're going to preview the first uh, downhill and the first uphill of the course. And so you can see that right here. It's the first downhill is at mile 3, and then we get a really fun little climb. And we're gonna go out, we'll ride some nice little gravel on this nice connector, and then we'll turn around. It'll just be an out and back. Um, won't be too nasty. It'll be about 9.5 miles and about 450 feet of elevation gain. But it will give you a preview of the first downhill and uphill of the course. I recommend checking it out, even if you don't come on this shakeout ride, checking it out to make sure that you know what you're going to be coming up on race morning. Okay, I'm gonna switch to a different topic now. Does anybody have any Bentonville logistical questions? Feel free to come off mute if you would like to. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but if you think of something, feel free to chime in. You're welcome to raise your hand or just pop it into the chat. Okay, so let's talk about race day essentials. So this all starts actually the night before the race. You're going to want to make sure you get a good meal in. I, recommend pasta, carbs, protein, whatever's going to make you feel good and make sure your tummy is not upset for the next day. And make sure that you feel good going into the big race day. So my big recommendation is to eliminate room for mistakes. And what I mean by that is when you wake up on Saturday morning ready to race, do everything that you can the night before. So that way all you literally have to do is get dressed and get your bike. So what I recommend is do all of your prep the night before. You're going to lay out your kit, everything from your socks to your heart rate monitor, sports bra, all of that. Lay it out in one spot. So in the morning, you're not running around like a mad person saying, "Where's my jersey? Where's my cycling bibs?" Put it all out next to your chamois cream. That way, next to your sunglasses, you're ready to go. Make sure all of your devices are charged. Nothing worse than showing up to the start line and your bike computer is dead. So charge everything. Recommend that you fill your bottles and your hydration packs the night before. I actually like to load them onto my bicycle. I'll put my hydration pack, I'll put the handle or put the straps around my bike, and that way it's all just there, ready to go. And then I also like to confirm that the route is loaded to my device. Turn on whether it's your phone using Ride with GPS or a bike computer, turn it on and make sure that you have the course for the next day. So that's all the night before. Take care of all of that before you go to bed. For me, I like to pop an edible before I go to bed. I make sure I take care of all of that before anything else happens. In the morning, eat a good breakfast, whatever you would normally eat before a hard effort. Don't change things up on race day. Do what you've been doing. But I also like to bring an extra snack for the start line. Because you're probably going to get up a couple hours early, you're going to have your coffee, especially if you go down to watch the pros start, which again, I recommend doing. It's fun. It kind of brings the whole thing together and makes it feel really exciting. And you'll likely get to see them finish as well. But definitely bring an extra snack for the start line. Peanut butter and jelly works out really well, hard-boiled egg, a banana, something like that. And then this might be obvious, but relax and try and get a good night's sleep. And don't forget to set your alarm. Saturday morning, easy to forget that. So that's my advice there is to take care of all of that. What should you be carrying? Real quickly, these are the donkeys and the little horse that awaits you at mile 11. It's very, very cute. Highly recommend stopping, and there's a cute barn as well. So what should you be carrying? More nutrition than you think you would need. I aim for 150 to 180 calories per hour on an effort like this. Hopefully you have dialed in what you like to eat, and make sure you bring plenty of it. There's nothing worse than getting out there and being hungry and realizing you don't have any extra snacks. So bring plenty. One trick that I like to do for that is to set reminders on my device, on my bike computer. So I have it set up sync to my heart rate. So every 100 calories, it pops up and tells me to eat a snack. And then I've said this a number of times, but don't switch things up on race day. You know, if you get to the expo and some brand is there hawking some kind of new nutrition, you know, grab it for a future training ride, but I wouldn't eat it on race day unless you've been training with it, because you never know what it will do to your digestive system and mess things up. So no fun there. As far as hydration goes, definitely have at least 2 bottles on you. The first aid station for the 50 isn't until about mile 23, I believe. I don't know exactly, but it's not for a little ways into the race. And then on the 25, our aid station is about midway through. But so I recommend having 2 bottles with you and a hydration pack if you like to wear a hydration pack. Um, Use this next 2 weeks to practice eating and drinking while you're riding. If you don't know how to do that, it definitely it can be a little bit challenging out on those gravel roads. I apologize, I was getting a phone call. So you definitely have to change that or practice that. And then I recommend both a mix of water and electrolytes. So maybe 1 bottle with just water and 1 bottle with electrolytes to prevent the cramping. And then finally, don't forget your repair kit and any personal needs. So that includes sunscreen, chapstick, a glasses cleaner cloth for your glasses. You know, if it's rainy or I don't think it'll be muddy. We talked about that last time. The course doesn't tend to get muddy out here. We won't have any issues like that. But whatever personal needs you have, don't forget to pack those as well. Okay, let's talk about when things go wrong, because inevitably they might. What mile is the water station at? I should know this. I don't know it off the top of my head. They have not released the official 2024 courses yet. When they release those, we can find out. But if I remember correctly, last year it was at mile 36 or 37, I think. I don't remember exactly, but so the aid station is in the mid-20s for the 50 mile, and it's in the mid-30s for the water station. And then for the 25 mile, the aid station, which includes water, is about midway through mile 15 or 16, I think. All right, Stephen, the courses, he's pretty sure the courses are posted now. When I looked yesterday, and I was making it, that they were not. So that would be awesome if they actually are posted. And I apologize that I don't have that update for you. Okay, so let's talk about what happens when things go wrong. So the first thing is to take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. It's just a bike race. People can get really worked up. So just remember to take a deep breath. And then I recommend to eat a quick snack. You know, especially if it's a flat tire, you know, get out one of your bars and grab a couple bites of it. It'll help calm you down, and it's going to make changing that flat tire easier. You probably were waiting to get to the aid station to eat a snack anyway, but now is a perfect time to eat a snack. Um, Next step is to move out of the way and into the shade if you can. There isn't a whole lot of shade on this course, depending on where you're at. And if it's not super hot, it's not going to matter that much. Last year, it ended up being in the low to mid 80s on race day, and so it was pretty warm. And so if you're able to move to a shady spot, that's going to make fixing your mechanical that much less unpleasant, we should say. And then I recommend kind of evaluating the situation, taking a step back and saying, you know, can I continue to ride and fix this at the aid station? Maybe it's something where your gears are skipping a little bit, and it would be good to have a mechanic take a look at it. You know, if it's a flat tire, you're going to need to fix that right away. Just evaluating, is this something I need to stop and fix right now? B, ask yourself, is this something me or somebody else can repair? You know, is this something that is fixable? Or C, is this a ride ender? You know, things like flat tires, those are fixable. You know, if you get a huge sidewall gash in your tire, that might not be fixable. And so I recommend just asking yourself those questions, you know, can I fix this later and keep going? Can I even repair this, or do I need to call it? I believe, and do not quote me on this, but I believe they give us a SAG number to call, where if things go wrong, you can call that and they will pick you up. It'll be in the rider guide. We talked about the rider guide last time. As soon as they get that updated, we'll have that information in there. But when things go wrong, which they inevitably will, just don't freak out, stay calm, And my recommendation is people are going to ride by and they're going to ask you, hey, is everything okay? Or do you need help? If you genuinely don't know how to fix it, say, hey, I could use a hand. A lot of people let their egos get in the way and they will just struggle with it. But lots of folks are willing to help out. A lot of people aren't super concerned about their time out there, and they're willing to help out. So don't let your ego get in the way of getting your bike fixed and getting back on the road. All right. We talked about this last time, but I'm going to reiterate it. You need to have a repair kit on you, with at a minimum these things. So you need to have a multi-tool to fix any bolts that come loose, adjust your saddle height. If something goes wonky there, having a multi-tool, having a flat kit, which we will talk more about that in just a second. I recommend having a couple zip ties in there. You never know, zip ties are useful for all sorts of things. Same thing with a spare bolt, making sure that you have a spare bolt. I recommend having cleat bolts if you're clipping in, because inevitably it's on race day when one of your cleat bolts will come loose, and then it makes it really hard to clip in and out of your shoes. Having a snack or two in your repair kit is really helpful, just in case as a very, very last resort. And then also having an inner tube. Regardless if you're running a tubeless repair setup or not, having an inner tube has saved me more times than I can count. So what should go in your actual flat kit? So I recommend Dynaplugs, or sometimes they're called bacon strips. You use those to repair punctures in your tire if you're running tubeless. Again, really important that you know how to use these. So make sure you're watching a YouTube video or asking your mechanic, how do you actually use those things? Tire levers to get your tire off, a spare tube like we just talked about, a pump. I recommend both a pump, a hand pump, and a CO2 inflator and CO2 cartridges. As a reminder, if you're flying in for this race, you cannot fly with CO2, but you can buy CO2 cartridges at any of the bike shops around here. And then I also recommend a valve core tool. If you're running a tubeless setup and you have to get your valve out, you will potentially need a tool to get that out. So just recommend having that together, as part of your flat repair kit. And if you've been riding a lot and maybe gotten a few flats, make sure you check this to make sure that all of your parts are still in there. Okay, and so the kind of the last thing, we talked about this last time, but I'm going to reiterate it, is there's a lot of elements that are under your control. If you get these things dialed in, then the things that are out of your control will be much less of a challenge and much less daunting. So now is the time, if you haven't already in the last 2 weeks, dial in your bike fit and your setup. Dial in your tire pressure. If you're coming from out of town, you might want to play with this a little bit after you've gone on a shakeout ride and seen what the terrain is like here in Northwest Arkansas. But it shouldn't differ too much from the tire pressure that you're running at home. You can also dial in your mechanical prep, all those things that we just talked about. Your nutrition and your hydration plan. Hopefully you've got that all figured out. You've got all your products bought. If for some reason you come into town and you realize, oh crap, I forgot my scratch gummies, or I forgot my scratch hydration mix. There are literally, we counted the other day, there are 10 bike shops in Bentonville, and any one of them would be happy to take your money and sell you the nutrition products that you need. So no big deal if you get to town and you realize you've forgotten things. They have lots of stuff. Your navigation plan and equipment. So whether you're navigating on a bike computer or on your cell phone, use these next 2 weeks to practice that. And if you need help with that, email me and I will work with you one-on-one on that, because it can be confusing and it can be really daunting. Your fitness and your endurance. We're kind of coming down to the wire now. I realize I haven't ridden my gravel bike in a couple weeks. I don't know where my fitness is at. It's going to be interesting. But those are all elements that are under your control. And then finally, of course, your attitude is fully under your control. And so the things that are not in your control are the weather. We don't know if it's going to be a beautiful 75 and sunny. Let's hope it is. Or if it's going to be 55 and rainy. We also don't know about the course conditions. For the most part, the roads around here run pretty well. It's not going to vary too much. Like I said, there really won't be any muddy spots. There shouldn't be any water crossings. It should be pretty darn predictable of gravel roads, basically. But you never know. Things happen. Things get rerouted, things get washed out, things like that. We also don't know about the wind direction. One nice thing about this course is we don't have a lot of long straightaways. And so if you are faced with a headwind, it won't be for very long because you'll inevitably be turning or going into a hill or a holler. That's what we call the kind of undulations around here when you're up in the Ozark Mountains are hollers. You'll know what I'm talking about when you get here. But we have no control over the wind direction. And then again, how fast anyone else goes. So, if your only goal is not to get last place, I recommend maybe setting another goal because you never know. You could get out there and everybody else is just incredibly fast and you still have the best ride of your life and you come in last. Are you going to be sad about that? I hope not. So, you have all of these elements that are totally under your control and just a couple that aren't. So if you can dial in all the things that are under your control, you're gonna have a good day. You might be cold, you might be wet, but you've got everything else dialed in. So I hope that makes sense. It has proven successful for me over many years and many miles. So I hope it's helpful for you. And that went really fast this time. I have imbued you with all of my knowledge. I hope that this sets you up well. I hope you're not feeling too nervous. And I would be happy to answer any questions that anybody has about gravel, Big Sugar, and Bentonville. I'm going to stop sharing and see if anybody has any questions.
Marley, I did think of a Bentonville logistical question.
Sure.
Um, Eating around town, what is it like when town is full? Like, should we be making reservations places now or just hang out long lines? Are there plenty of places like?
That's a really good question. The downtown square will get really crazy, and the downtown square is overpriced. But if you go out on like Walton, there's lots of restaurants that will have plenty of space available. There's also grocery stores, if you're staying at a place where you can cook stuff. If there's anywhere that you like have your eye on, if you're like, oh, I really want to eat at Conifer while I'm in town, or I really want to eat at whatever it might be, I would recommend making a reservation because it can get a little bit busy. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Matt, I see your hands up.
Hey, can you talk? I know the schedule hasn't been released yet, but I'm also trying to plan my weekend. Can you talk about some of the other events that happen at these lifetime races? Like, I know there's probably going to be lots of shakeout rides, not just our shakeout ride. And can you kind of talk about that from like a big picture, not necessarily specifically this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. So typically with these weekends, there will be 5 to 10 shakeout rides. There'll be happy hours. There'll be panels. Um, there will be autograph signings. They'll have the athletes from the Lifetime Grand Prix doing autograph signings. And so they typically start around 8 in the morning with shakeout rides and go till 5 or 6 in the afternoon. There will also be the gravel rave. So after on Saturday night, there'll be kind of a big closing party. I think it's free for registrants. If you want to bring a +1, it costs money. But yeah, there'll be 5 to 10 shakeout rides. Like I said, you'll just want to pick the one that's most appropriate for you. And you can always do your own ride. Nobody gets mad about that at all. But it is a very packed schedule of events, and I'm hoping they release it soon. B Mason, I don't know what your first name
Yeah.
is, but hi.
Hello. Yeah, it's Bill. So I think you answered this earlier, but like for example, I mean, one, I'm pretty new, but so I feel comfortable with my top tube bag. I've got a repair kit bag, and I've kind of been playing around with like or looking at frame, bags and such. And so it sounds like there might be a number of different shopping opportunities on Friday, so I can really see a whole bunch of different options before I just buy something online. Would that be correct?
Yes, definitely. Either from the bike shop, so from the brick and mortar, but there'll be a lot of brands that are at the expo that will have options for you there too.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yep. Lindsay.
Hey, so I'm staying at like a campground just a couple miles outside of town. Do you know if I wanted to like Uber downtown, do they have bike racks on Ubers or anything like that?
Most of them do not.
Okay,
Yeah, if you're able to drive downtown, depending on where your campground is at, I would drive. There's tons of free parking.
okay,
I know I said earlier, but to not, but that's like if you're like staying in the downtown area.
okay, cool. That's perfect. Thank
Yep,
you.
you're welcome. Other questions from folks? It's going to be a really fun weekend. People around here are already getting really excited about it. So, one other thing is if you have friends and family coming to town, they are looking for volunteers. And so it can be a cool way to be involved. You can be at the aid station, or they can be at the aid station. They can do packet pickup. They can do all sorts of different things. And it's a cool way to give your friends and family something to do if they're coming with you and not sure what to do while you're out riding for however many hours it might be.
I will second that. We volunteered at Gravel Locos at an aid station this year, and it was so much fun. Like just being a part of that and like seeing the pros come through, and it was a good time.
Cool. Yeah, Ben. Oh, you're on mute.
I
There.
think that worked. Okay, sorry. Um, just looking at like Facebook for events in the area, I think some of them might post shakeout rides or various other events happening that you can look for. And then also some of the local organizations, OZ Gravel and these sort of things will be good. They've already started posting things like on Instagram about shakeout rides and stuff happening. So checking those out is a good idea too.
Cool. Thank you. And like I said, feel free to email me if you think of things. I'll be around town. I'll be hanging out at some of my sponsors' booths throughout the weekend. And then I will email everyone as soon as we know when our shakeout ride is scheduled for. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you back another 30 minutes in your night. I really appreciate you all taking the time to join this call. I hope has been a useful program for you. And I would be open to any feedback that anybody might have. And with that, I hope everybody has a great night.